Pathological demand avoidance syndrome is largely thought of as being part of the autism spectrum, but many of those who doubt or question the validity of PDA as such do so because they claim that PDA behaviours are found right across the spectrum, which, therefore, makes subtyping autism unnecessary. Because many PDA characteristics are indeed panautistic, comparing PDA with other autism presentations is not really a wise way to go about distinguishing PDA from the rest of the spectrum, as one will find that they become the recipient or target of Dr. Stephen Shaw's famous quote, "If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism." Instead, I'm going to highlight PDA behaviours which are consistent with those of other non-autistic profiles, namely cluster B personality disorders, as I believe that this is where it becomes clear that PDA, despite being a behaviour profile within the autism spectrum, is actually an offshoot on the autism tree. Disclaimer: I am not in any way, shape or form suggesting that PDA is a personality disorder. I am merely pointing out the similarities and differences between the PDA profile and cluster B personality disorders as a way of distinguishing PDA from the rest of the autism spectrum. The spectrum that also happens to be PDA's true foundation. So, narcissism. The diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder are as follows. Trait 1. Grandiosity. The narcissist indulges in delusions of grandeur. They are firmly convinced that they are superior to others, and any disagreement with this conviction can cause the narcissist to smoulder and rage, illustrating the brittle nature of their grandiosity, as it is nothing but a bulwark beneath which the narcissist's authentic essence, that is irreparably damaged from traumatic early experiences, cowers. The grandiosity is an illusion and precariously balanced, much like trying to balance a doll's house upon a toothpick. Criticism to this meticulously crafted defense mechanism, however small, sends it crashing down, unveiling that which the narcissist doesn't want you to see, the real them. Trait 2. Arrogant and domineering. The word arrogant is defined as having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities. As well as exhibiting this unsavoury trait, the narcissist will proceed to impose themselves on others and seize control through intimidation and bullying. Trait 3. Preoccupation with success and power. The narcissist is forever teasing and gorging themselves with sequences of delicious images and fantasies of the success and power which they believe is due to them, such as becoming the next President of the United States, for example. These fantasies may even be incommensurate with the narcissist's true abilities, of which they would, of course, have a warped view, given that they regard themselves as unimpeachably superior to the mere mortals who rank below them. For example, winning a singing contest without having any previous experience in singing, or fantasizing about becoming the greatest footballer on the planet even though they never made the school team as a child. Trait 4. A lack of empathy. The narcissist doesn't really care for their fellow humans. Rather, they see people as objects they can use and exploit. So long as the person gives the narcissist that which they crave, the narcissist may pretend to like them and will proceed to drink them dry of their subservience and or adulation. Alas, as soon as said person ceases to nourish the narcissist's rapacious, grandiose alter ego, the narcissist will hastily dispose of the person as though they are subhuman scum, and will then go on to find a new food source. Whilst the narcissist is devoid of emotional empathy, the ability to feel what others are feeling, they possess cognitive empathy, the understanding of feelings and how they work, and more sinisterly, how they can manipulate them. Trait 5. Belief of being unique. The narcissist is convinced that there isn't, nor has there ever been, a person remotely like them or a person who can come close to them. They transcend humanity in their eyes. Forget Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. or Joan of Arc. Whatever history's greatest heroes and heroines have done for humanity and the planet, the narcissist can do it better. The narcissist's true intentions, however, are not ones of humanitarianism and benevolence. Rather, the narcissist is entirely motivated by self-gain. Trait 6. Sense of entitlement. The narcissist believes that they deserve to get everything and anything they want when they want it. They shouldn't have to wait patiently in a queue like everyone else does. They scoff at the thought of not being promoted to the position of manager after a day into a new job, as how and why could anyone not recognise their perceived obvious brilliance? They consider themselves on par with people whom they believe possess considerable power, such as national leaders or celebrities, and believe they are entitled to the same treatment as said individuals, despite not having anything whatsoever to show for it. They alone are sufficient proof of their undeniable supremacy. Trait 7. Requires excessive admiration. What sustains or reinforces the narcissist is a steady intake of attention, be it positive or negative, praise or fear, from people around them. Without the constant validation from other humans, the narcissist's sense of self begins to melt away and disappear, evincing the screaming child who resides within. The screaming child they have to suppress and bury under delusions of grandeur. Trait 8. Exploitative. The narcissist views other people as mere lily pads, over whom they hop in pursuit of self-gain. The narcissist can give the appearance of liking or loving someone, but this is only so long as the person continues to feed the narcissist what they want. In other words, the narcissist isn't interested in the person, they are interested in what the person has to offer them. Trait 9. Envious of others. This trait certainly ties in with the narcissist's sense of entitlement. Anyone who assumes a position of power will find that they immediately become the narcissist's biggest threat. I mean, who would dare show the narcissist up? Who would dare to elicit actual human qualities, such as vulnerability, from the narcissist? Who would dare remind the narcissist that they aren't as supernal as they might think, and chip away at their grandiosity, exposing it for the brittle mechanism that it is? The narcissist quivers at the injustice when witnessing someone in a position of power, or at someone in possession of something the narcissist believes is so rightfully theirs. Okay, so I hope that gave you an inkling of NPD. Individuals need 5 traits out of the 9 I enumerated to be able to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. 5 out of 9. Now let's see what NPD and PDA have in common, and how the two differ. First and foremost, if we consider PDA as part of the autism spectrum, it means that PDAers will have to meet the triad of impairments which serve as the diagnostic foundation of autism spectrum disorder, or autism spectrum condition, if that's what you prefer. These being difficulties in social communication and social interaction, and restricted and repetitive patterns of behaviours, activities or interests. We also have to factor in that a large percentage of autistic persons exhibit sensory issues. As we have already learned, these traits are not part of the diagnostic criteria for NPD. Whilst autism is predominantly believed to have a strong genetic and neurological base, aside from a few environmental factors which correlate with its existence, personality disorders are believed to stem from an individual's being exposed or subjected to prolonged exposure to abuse or trauma during a pivotal time in a young child's development, the formative years. I must add here, though, that the individual probably has a genetic predisposition towards a certain personality disorder. In the case of narcissism, where the child's emerging boundaries are violated and who they are at their core is essentially battered down or negated, they go on to develop a trusty, successful defense mechanism that shields them from future harm, a mechanism that is everything the abused child is not: a narcissist. While the narcissist may struggle with everyday interactions, putting people off due to their excessive need or hunger for validation and lack of interest in their interlocutor outside the validation they can supply for the narcissist, their overall social ability may be intact, if not superior. The narcissist may have learned to downplay their superficial grandiosity as a method of eliciting certain reactions from people. Say, for example, the narcissist is hungry for praise. They may present as a humble, kind, or delightful person on the surface that those around them can't help but admire and compliment, providing the narcissist with nutrition. Behaving in a directly grandiose or arrogant way is likely to repel people, which spells disaster for the praise-hungry narcissist, as they want to do all that they can in order to keep people near to them and not turn them away. So depending on which reaction is most nutritious to the narcissist at any given moment, fear or praise, the narcissist will tailor themselves accordingly, depending on whom they're with. PDAs too can call upon certain behaviours that mask their more, perhaps, traditionally autistic traits, i.e. fundamental problems with social interaction, chit-chat, sarcasm, and so on, that may hinder them at a time they wish to flourish, or they might just exploit certain behaviours for safety reasons or to remain in control in an oppressive, demand-laden environment. Carefully observing other people during social transactions, learning lines from movies by rote, experimenting with using certain phrases, can be used as an additional personality layer where their authentic autistic self just won't do or seems inferior. The PDA might use charm offences. For example, they may try out a phrase such as this on their teacher: "Good morning, beautiful." Did that work? The PDA will ask themselves. If so, the phrase will be used again in the future. Every effective phrase the PDA discovers gets stored in their mental hard drive, where they are always at the ready for the PDA to use if needs be. These phrases and behaviours might be used to impress, to endear, to shock, to disgust, or to distract. They call upon whichever is most applicable to the environment they are in, or whichever reaction they're trying to elicit from people. Both PDAs and narcissists are hypervigilant and scan their environment for potential threats. The narcissist's sole purpose is to shore up their grandiosity and protect themselves from criticism, which may chink their armour and ultimately evince the damaged child within. The PDA is on high alert for demands that serve to dislodge their precarious balance and their precariously balanced sense of freedom. Both the narcissist and the PDA will search for people's weak spots or Achilles' heels, just in case they may need to use them. Both can be exceedingly controlling. The narcissist may use control to ensure that people know who the boss is, and the PDA resorts to control when they feel their sense of freedom is under threat. Whilst the narcissist seeks to avoid their authentic essence, which they eclipse and obscure from view using their grandiose self, the PDA is often unsure as to what their authentic essence is, harbouring a kind of fragmented sense of identity. Across various settings, each fragment of their self will take turns assuming the fore or the driver's seat, depending on the company and on the environment. On a positive note, each fragment can unite as one when the PDA enters their natural habitat, whatever and wherever that may be. When the PDA is triggered, their dark passenger, who has a maternal attachment over the PDA, but a hostile relationship with everyone outside, steps forth and assumes the driver's seat. Say a kind and gentle version of the PDA is at the fore, the dark passenger will shove them out the way, shrink them down to an atom, and move them clear from view, much like how a parent will protect their family should burglars break into the house late at night. The dark passenger will then do what they need to do before heading off again and giving another, more socially acceptable form of the PDA to return to the fore. Both the narcissist and the PDA will rage or melt down if their precious life force has been taken away from them. When the PDA has been stripped of their freedom and control, they will use any means necessary to try and regain their baby from whoever or whatever took it from them. The PDA, unlike the narcissist, doesn't just exhibit empathy, but has a superabundance of it, both cognitive and emotional. Unlike the narcissist, who only possesses cognitive empathy. Because the narcissist lacks emotional empathy, as soon as they've calmed down from a rage fit, they will not feel remorse or guilt for what they've done and whom they've hurt. At the most, they may feel disgusted or ashamed at how they might have come across to any onlookers. The PDA, on the other hand, has a slightly different experience. When the PDA melts down, the emotional empathy they usually have in abundance lifts off from them, and their cognitive empathy kicks into overdrive. If a loved one triggers them, then they no longer perceive that person as their loved one, just a hideous, evil mass of horror who has robbed them of the one thing they hold most dear: control. The PDA at this point will have the opportunity to tap into that person's Achilles heel, which, as previously discussed, they've already detected in the early stages of the relationship for this exact reason. Say the loved one has a physical insecurity, the PDA will bring it up and ridicule them for it. If the loved one has a precious possession, say a favourite article of clothing, the PDA will seize it and either destroy it in front of them or at least threaten to destroy it if the loved one doesn't do exactly as the PDA commands. Once control and freedom have been successfully restored, the emotional empathy comes flooding back into the PDA. At this moment, we can see how very different the PDA is to the narcissist. The guilt, remorse, and sympathy for the person they've just reduced to a floundering wreck is nothing short of unbearable. The PDA may cry and console the person that initially triggered them and think, "Oh my God, what have I done?" Due to the narcissist's excessive need for admiration, it isn't at all surprising to know that they would make the ideal cult leader. Such a responsibility for the PDA, however, may prove too demanding. The idea may be appealing to the PDA, but when it comes down to it, the PDA would probably quickly tire of the monotony for a start. It is also important to add that the narcissist searches indefatigably for praise and compliments and feels very much on cloud nine when they get told that they've done a good job. The PDA, when praised for doing a good job on something, will feel insulted and may even reverse the progress they've made on the job as a way of spitting in the face or manipulating the emotions of the person who praised them. The PDA wants total equality, not absolute power, like the narcissist. The PDA sometimes appears as though they want total power, but this is temporary behaviour and very deceptive. Temporary behaviour and tactical behaviour. PDAs engage in what I call environmental levelling, whereby they equalise or level out their social environment. If an authoritative figure is in the room, the PDA will detect an obtrusive protrusion in an otherwise level plane and will then proceed to stamp out the teacher's authoritative role out of existence in an attempt to make them their equal. If someone treats the PDA as their equal, then the PDA has no reason to behave in a domineering fashion, unlike the narcissist, who is perpetually domineering. This process is a huge part of the PDA's lack of recognition of a pecking order. The narcissist, on the other hand, refutes the pecking order, insofar as they are not at the top. As for entitlement, well, the PDA feels entitled to that which will give them more freedom and control over their lives. They would not, for example, understand why they aren't allowed in the cockpit on the plane, but the pilot is, whereas the narcissist feels entitled because they believe they are fundamentally better than others. Okay, that should be sufficient for this topic. Stay tuned for my next videos, in which I will compare PDA with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Bye.